of procrastination.
Speaking of procrastination and perfectionism,
Mhm.
this is not chaos that we're seeing, but chaos that we're feeling
Seeing it
today
in
and
ourselves,
every
yeah.
day.
We're seeing it in ourselves. The self-awareness is high level. Yeah.
The self-awareness is often high level. The action tied to the self-awareness, though,
Is the hard part.
is the hard part. The awareness feels easy at this point. Do you think that has something to do with just like not desensitization, but well, you can call yourself out on your BS. I'm still not going to do anything about it, and then that self-sabotage that comes with that. Where's that? What's that
That
about?
has to be self-sabotage because if there's an awareness that you have and you're not willing to act upon it, you are sabotaging yourself.
Yeah, right. Why do we do that? I mean, I do know why. I can predict why. My brain can predict why.
Because my brain loves to predict why and not
Yeah,
actually move in any sort of way. It's so much
yeah.
easier for an overthinker to just think. It's
Mhm.
so easy for me to like intellectually lay the problem and the solution out in front of me. And I'm like, of course. And then I get to feel like a genius for having solved the problem. Not ever, and not that's a big absolute. Obviously, I do, but having a difficult time taking the plan and moving into the steps that have been laid out is
Right.
the part that's like, I couldn't, I should, I will, oh, maybe I won't. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's like the brain came up with a solution and that's good enough for
Yeah.
now. We'll take action later, maybe.
I well, and why is that? Why are we so quick to come up with solutions, but so few of us move towards what we know is right, right being whatever direction you want to go in, what's straight, or let's just call it straight, because that's at least
Yeah,
down the middle, you're
right.
moving forward in the very least towards whatever it is. It doesn't have to be self-actualization. I feel like that's such a thing that, like, okay, what about your next goal? What about the thing that you want that is in front of you? Like, you know how to get there. There's at this
Yeah.
point in time, there's no way you don't know how to get there. You're choosing, and I'm saying you, but I mean we, because I do it myself. We are choosing this place rather than the place that we want to be. Sometimes that's okay. Mostly it's kind of not.
Right. It's just kind of mediocre. But we've also potentially trained ourselves to be mediocre.
I love
And that's
media.
the whole point. Like there's not enough pressure behind what the action in the solution is in
Yeah.
order for it
No,
to
no,
take
pressure.
place.
Yeah, 'cause I can feel 2 things being true right now, just in having
Yeah.
this conversation. 1, I hate the idea of average. Mediocrity so
Yeah.
boring to me, like, bleh, I
Yeah.
get that kind of feeling in my body, and I'm not sure yet that the other side is pulling me greater than the comfort that I sit in.
Right. And that's the other part. It's just
Am
comfortable.
I am
Like,
I not yucked enough? I guess not.
mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. So I mean, we've opened up a whole can of worms here now to talk about because it's perfectionism, it's self-sabotage, it's patterns, pattern recognition, it's awareness, it's taking action, and how do all those things combine is
Mhm.
what we're really trying to unpack and answer here.
Yeah.
Fuck. And I'm going to add to this too because I often think about this. What motivates people when, and maybe this is a question for our audience too, what motivates you when you are just at ease, when things in your life are just kind of flowing along? They're not mediocre, but they're not amazing either, but it's just it's at ease, it's contentment. What motivates people that are content, and do they even need motivating? What's the like why would you want to get out of contentment?
I need this first maybe to process, and then potentially there's an answer there somewhere. But as you were talking, all I could think about, and maybe for me at the very least, I'm assuming that this is what ties my self-sabotage all together, is that lack of tension that you're talking about. So everything is easeful. And
Mhm.
one, I'm uncomfortable with ease. So I go looking for things that are tense, but also, at least in my mind, and I don't know if this is a universal truth or is this just something that I've agreed with and potentially other people have agreed with, is that tension is required for growth. Adversity is necessary. And then I start to ask, to what degree? Is it
Mhm.
true that you need to have such levels of tension that that's how you grow? Is there any other forms of growth that are available that aren't so tough?
And the answer is yes. It's just potentially not what our 2 brains are used to, and I'm sure many other people's brains are used to, because 'cause we're used to the tension, we're used to the challenge, we're used to difficult and solving problems, and that's the pattern that's been formed, the habit that's been formed in our minds. So really any of this, because what motivates people? Curiosity. Why can't curiosity be a thing that motivates,
Mhm.
right? That there curiosity can be tensionless, but that's not the habit that we have.
I
The
think
habit
there's
that
a
we have is thriving
tension.
in chaos.
Yeah, I think potentially there's a level of tension inside of curiosity. That's what's sparking it in the first place. Like maybe there, some sort of disconnect in some way that is driving that force to even come to be. And maybe that's where I'm asking that question too, of like how far does it have to go? What is the level in which we all like feel tense enough to move? Is curious, if the answer, curiosity isn't necessarily tense enough for many people. It's like a stimulus thing, right? The greater the stimulus, the greater the tension, the greater the outcome is going to be because of, the laws of effects and things of that nature, right? So if it's a big, and we were talking about this, I think it was yesterday, when there's a big downfall or something hits, a low point, the obvious opposite trajectory is equal and opposite in the other direction. So, like, you would assume that it's going to be something large. And while that's true, that's not necessarily always what growth needs to be. And like now I'm coming to this understanding again as I'm talking it out loud, because sure, that's large and it's what people would love to say, like, oh, I just quantum leaped. Okay, cool. But what about those other steps in between that are just choice, intent, movements forward rather than having to be knocked on your ass
Mhm,
in
mhm.
order for something to move
Sure.
positively?
Do you think historically that type of movement or growth has not been recognized or awarded enough to
Right.
feel like, because we always hear about, like, the big like the David and Goliath, like, the stories that the dark night of the soul and the phoenix rising from the ashes, like, it's those extremes are what get glorified?
Yeah. Two things on that. One, I agree. Part of it, I think, is our fault because we are our
Right.
experience. We sensationalize things because we like it. Things
Absolutely.
are put in our face because we say that we want it. And so that's part of it. And two, in that same respect, just because these sensationalized things are happening, or like, this is not necessarily related, but it's going to help with the context. When people say somebody turns into an overnight celebrity, sure,
Mhm.
that's true. And also there has to be, again, based on cause and effect, other things that happened for that to even have come to be. Yeah, sure, it could have grown exponentially in a short period of time, but there were still other things that happened in order for that to even become a thing. And so we're not seeing or giving credit to think they're already
You
there,
have
right? It's not
15
like
years that they put into
right,
their artistry prior to
exactly.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. And like because it's not there or shined upon doesn't mean it's not there. But at the same time, we then don't get to see it. And so it doesn't become reality for the rest of us because we only get to see the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg, rather than the
Mhm.
whole fucking floating surface that is we don't know what because we don't get to see it. This also goes back into like comparison kind of thing, you know? Like you don't know what the fuck is underneath somebody else's iceberg. All we get to see
Yeah,
great is we get the tip. Like amazing. The tip never fucking fails, I guess. It's just fucking
phrasing.
us everywhere. Yeah.
Anyone? Phrasing. So what does this have to do with self-sabotage? Because this is, I think, some energy that we're both sitting in a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah. Well,
And I'm certain other people will relate to this. Knowing, and maybe let's just describe what we mean by self-sabotage too. It's what will benefit you and you choose the thing that doesn't. For what reason? Because it's easier, because it's present, because you've justified it in some way, you've given yourself some excuse. The underlying mechanism that our brain wants to attach to is that we're protecting ourselves from something,
always.
right?
Right.
And my question is always this too, and I fall into this trap often. It just goes in waves, right? Like we just like anything, there's ebbs and flows. And knowing that these particular habits, tools, rituals, whatever I have in my life serve me in such profound ways. I will use an absolute here. I always feel better when I exercise, when I eat healthy, when I drink lots of water, like all these very simple things. And I'll go into phases where I choose the opposite of those things.
Yeah.
For what? Knowing full well the positive feeling that I get from practicing those things, why wouldn't I do them?
Yeah.
Why
I mean,
wouldn't we do them? This is
yeah.
like the ultimate, like, someone please answer this.
Right, 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 right.
What's it actually providing us when we don't? Is it just that mechanism where, well, I better get I've been up for too long. I better get low again to bring back that challenge.
Yeah.
What
Right.
why is that necessary? Is that what it's about? I mean, I know you don't have the answer, but we're posing the question.
Right.
Because it feels good to solve a problem, because it feels good to bounce back from a challenge, because it's what we know, it's familiar.
All of it. I feel like all of that definitely makes sense, especially to the parts of me that are self-sabotaging. Because 'cause I'm like, "Yeah, no, that all of it tracks." And also, it almost what came up when you were saying all of these things about going back to essentially what I call the basics, these basic things that we know either one about ourselves or know that we require in order for us to be, as stupid as it sounds, our most optimal human, right? Like our most optimal self. And it feels like a lack of desire for it's not even confrontation, but it's sort of, I mean, to confront in the sense of confronting this version of
Pattern.
myself versus the version of myself that chooses not to or would rather not or has to continue to use these excuses. And that's, you said it already, it's the pattern recognition, but it's recognizing as well, not just the pattern from an observation, but the pattern from a this is, I want to say who I am, but how I have chosen to be. And like that's sometimes hard to step in front of. Like anything else is anytime you face yourself, especially in an obstacle in a sense of this is a potential road of me being a new person or me being and staying stuck exactly the same, continuing the same patterns. Like sometimes we don't really want to even look at the mirror. So it's very easy to just not, because then it doesn't feel like a decision, but this decision is made. You're just deciding to stay your old self, and so be it,
Yeah, like, it's impressive how much of a grip these, things have on us, and how difficult it actually is to replace them, and
Yeah.
the consistency that it requires. Once the habit is there, it becomes the default, and then you're
Oh,
consistently fighting against it if it's
mhm,
something that's negative.
mhm.
Like, when does it get easy? Does it get easy? Is there any habits that you have fully broke? Like, negative ones that you no longer think about?
Think about?
Yeah. Or just have to kinda, like, struggle with at all? 2 quick things.
First, we are working our asses off over here, as always, to bring you fresh chaos every week. Do us a solid, like, subscribe, rate, review, so the algorithm keeps us open and available to all of you so that you keep seeing us and we keep doing what it is that we love to do.
Second, we run a weekly container for women who are done deliberating and ready to execute. It's called the Accountability Club. And yes, it's exactly what it sounds like.
If you're a service provider, a coach, or a content creator, this space is for you.
Inside, you're going to get weekly calls where we actually do the work. There's no modules, there's no passive content. It's just showing up and getting shit done together. You're going to be in a private community for unfiltered feedback, drafts, shower thoughts. You'll have direct access to Amari and myself and to other women who won't let you stay stuck because you're going to get that unshakable knowledge that someone's going to ask you every Tuesday if you did the thing.
You'll also get 11 weeks worth of business training that will take you from chaos to clarity to finally launch the thing.
We're taking members soon, so get on the wait list now by clicking the link in the show notes.
Come get shit done. It's hard to answer because my usage of the word struggle is a potential barrier, but I would say that, I mean, obviously, I still default to pessimism, negativity. That's just,
Mhm.
and I don't mind.
Nihilism.
Yeah, nihilism. But what I do not have to think about, or what I do not have to convince myself not to do, is like fall into that emotional pool and live there for the rest of my life. Like, I don't have to pull myself out of that space in order to feel good. I used to have to
Mm.
continuously like pick my little ass out of that pool and tell myself to go sit in grass or like be fucking happy or smile for 10 seconds and see how that makes my body feel. I don't have to do that anymore. And so this isn't a habit, but I've essentially seemingly broken myself out of the thoughts, the patterns, and the experience essentially of depression. Like, I don't think about it as much anymore. I think about it. Sometimes I worry about it, but it's not something that's constantly on my mind of like actively having to like
It's not all consuming.
do
Yeah.
a thing, right, in order to make sure that that doesn't happen. It just is a little bit less, up and down like that.
Yeah. Why isn't that I would call that a habit. I think thought patterns
Yeah,
are habitual.
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think more so, not that it's not a habit, but I mean, it's hard when you're not in a position to talk about I don't want to call it medicine, but things of that nature and be able to
Tools?
just
Practical
simplify it.
tools?
So simplify it so much to, my depression were the thoughts and the habits and the patterns that I was like, of course. And, like I think there's just so much to it that it's very hard for me just to be like, I had the habit of being depressed, like that
Mhm.
feels really fucking weird and
Mhm.
partially true, but obviously so many layers to everything, right? It's not one thing, it's everything that compounds that makes an experience as it is. Um, so I say all of that to say, potentially the habits that I created while I was depressed. Like
Mhm.
sometimes that shit is hard. Sometimes brushing my teeth in the morning is a fucking struggle. Sometimes I do
Mhm.
have to like, bitch, go do that shit. Cause that's a habit that I was just very much used to, like not giving a fuck about myself. So that's why I say sometimes it's not a struggle, but sometimes I still think about it. Sometimes I still
Yeah.
have to take a intentful action to stay on the path.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's my point. It's interesting to me how intentional beneficial actions need to be. I'm trying to be very careful with my words here because maybe need isn't the right word, but
I mean, let's not mince them. I
versus
sure.
versus shit that just doesn't serve us. Like, why is that shit so easy? Why can that be so when it feels so fucking shitty? But
But does it?
less of
'Cause
an is it because is it less of an effort? No. It's effortful
No.
to be
Oh, everything is
depressed.
effort. Right,
Everything is
everything
effort.
is effortful, yeah. Obviously, part of it is the comfortability. If I wasn't comfortable with it as I was a developing human being, I wouldn't be comfortable with it now. If you took somebody who has never been depressed and put them in a depressive state, they that they're we would
That
have
would be
different experiences,
right.
right? I would fall into place, they would, fall out of place, essentially, always. And there is, right, you are benefiting or gaining something. There is, at least for me, something soothing about something that you already know and have experienced. And our mind is always looking for that sort of,
Right. Right. Going back to the familiarity of it because
right.
it feels safe, right?
That's safe. Right. And so,
It's always a always goes back to that protective mechanism, you know?
correct.
Same with
Ex-
perfectionism.
Right.
Perfectionism is the here because we're trying to save ourselves from being judged by others, including ourselves.
Right, exactly. So that we can stay part of the tribe, so that we don't get ostracized, so that we don't get killed, essentially. It's always going back
Yeah.
to self survival. And that's why it's so important to have those egoic death conversations so you can eat away at those parts of yourself. And obviously, it's not going anywhere. I truly don't believe in that. And we've done this part of, like,
Mhm.
ego death isn't real, but there is an integration that happens that no longer becomes your default setting. It's not something that overrides the whole system. It's a player in the game. It's not the whole piece. And
Mhm.
it's about putting ourselves back in the driver's seat and putting ourselves back as the whole. Like, remembering that the
Mhm.
whole is also parts, but, that's the beauty of it. Like, we have all of these parts that get to be part of the whole experience.
I like the car metaphor where self-sabotage is like, there's a default setting and you're in the passenger seat yelling at the steering wheel. So it's like a removed almost from what
Mhm.
the mechanism of choice even is in those moments.
Yeah.
Does that make it easier to accept? Not the metaphor, but being, like, removed from the role of being the chooser? Kinda putting yourself in the victim, like, in the passenger seat?
Yeah.
Maybe we do that because it doesn't feel so shameful when we're making the choice, if we
Yeah.
know better, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. There's always disassociation tied with
Yeah. Yeah, there's the word I'm looking for.
any shit decision you make.
Yeah. Yeah, it is my alter ego. That was one of my multiple
Right,
personalities.
right. And, like we've said before, disassociation, there's gotta use and it's purposeful, but sometimes you have to bring it back to your awareness of, what's the reason why this is happening? What is it serving? Is it moving you towards your path and your desires and whatever the fuck you believe your purpose to be? Because if not,
Mhm.
have a good look. If you don't know what that is, have a greater look.
Have a greater look, yeah. Find somebody to help you have a look,
Have a
if
look.
that's what's necessary too. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some other tools that you use to snap out of this kind of energy? Even if you're gonna skip them for a while, because sometimes, like, it's doesn't feel good to always be on for some reason either, like, every day, just day after day, just fucking firing on all cylinders. I don't know.
Fuck no.
So, the self-sabotage comes in so you can what? Just switch shit up a bit?
Down.
Yeah. Just yeah, to chill the fuck out. I was telling you that yesterday. I'm like,
And I'm
just
like,
chill the fuck out."
what does that mean? How does one do
Wow!
that?
How does one do that? Right,
So, of
and you know exactly how to do it, you're just not
course I
doing it.
know.
So
Uh, the
yeah.
part that annoys me, or that I keep getting hung up on, is that, one, I do know there are things that will never go anywhere. One of those, and this has been my entire life, is walking. Even if it's a fucking circle around I go outside every day. Rain, sunshine, fucking snow, I don't give a fuck. I know that about me so fundamentally that I don't even think about it.
Mm, mhm.
Something stressful as fuck happens, I'm like, "I gotta go outside." This
I
is
gotta go. Off I go.
0
Yeah,
fucking thoughts. There's no
love that.
moment between the thing happening and me going outside. It doesn't
That's a
exist,
solid habit right there. Yeah.
period. It's, the habit to the point that I wouldn't even consider it a habit is it's a fundamental of who I am. That's
Mhm.
how ingrained it is. So
Yeah.
there's things like that that I just would never, could never, and I think to me, those move beyond habits. Again, I feel like that's just like a fucking
It's a
characteristic of mine.
foundational.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I consider that differently than something I would like. I always come back to meditation. I can honestly say that it changed my life. I also potentially need to disassociate for myself what it means because I falter in and out of, like, to me, meditation can be anything. It can be watering my plants or washing my dishes or anything of that nature
Being
where I
mindful.
am in the present and the now. And I obviously also have this stringent idea of sitting down, not necessarily in a corner, but I'll just use it. Sitting down in a corner for 20 minutes
Mhm.
by myself without any sort of distraction is the other version of what I'm talking about. And to me, that is so hard to contain every single day without failure.
Anything every single day without failure is a lot of setting up for failure. There is a difference between like traditional meditation and mindfulness, and both are very powerful things. And so here's self-sabotage number 1. I can't meditate. I invite my clients all the time, like, "Do you meditate? Have you tried meditate?" Everyone's like, "Oh, I can't do that. My mind is way too loud. I'm way too busy. I'm this, that, the" all the excuses. Self-sabotage 101 right there.
Mhm.
Everybody can meditate.
Right, right.
So it really quick. And I think maybe here's an invitation, like, notice how quickly you dismiss a tool like that.
Mhm.
Maybe it's not for everybody, but everybody can do it.
Yeah.
I often find people dismiss it because it's fucking boring. It can be boring, right?
Yeah,
And it's so there's like, "Oh, it's not for me, it's not for me, it's not for me." It's like, well, you haven't given it a try then,
totally.
you know?
I'm the
Like,
kind of person that's willing to try anything, and so I know what is and what isn't, and I love people who can honestly say, "I've tried and it didn't work, and it's not for me." Okay, great. Because
okay,
I don't
yeah,
believe
but also give me every single detail about your
right.
experience and why
Like,
it
I
didn't
don't
work.
believe journaling is for everybody, but I would hope everyone has tried.
Has tried, right? Because that's another tool.
Impactful if you
100
let it.
getting the thoughts out in a tangible way, priceless.
Yes, and I think that's the difference that I'm trying to define between right, like, not that it's wrong, but, like, you're calling it mindfulness, and then this other sector of mindfulness that
Mhm.
includes meditation, and there's something for everyone also, you know? Like, there's
Yeah.
something available that will work for you in that respect, if you're willing to do it or not. That's for you to decide.
Some form of self-reflection though, because otherwise how
Strong
are you even aware of
right.
the patterns that you're in, right?
Strongly suggesting that something along those lines, right? It doesn't have to specifically be sitting down, cross-legged on the floor for 20 minutes trying to be silent, but find something that has an equivalent output, whatever outcome that you're expecting meditation to do. What does that for you? And sticking with that.
And sticking with it is the thing. You must give it a fair shot. Journaling 5 times is not a fair shot. Meditating 10 times is not a fair shot,
Right.
right? Like it take what is the what's the there's so much science behind habits. How long does it take for a habit to
They're not
form?
20 years.
It typically takes here's some real here's a solid offering.
Yes.
This is ridiculous. Okay,
Okay.
AI says it typically takes 18 to 254 days. Thanks.
Nigga.
to form a new habit, with an average of about 66 days for a behavior to become automatic. While
Mm,
the popular 21-day rule is a myth, consistent daily repetition is key to creating lasting change, obviously, with more complex habits often taking longer to stick than simpler ones, obviously.
sure.
So 66 days on average, it says.
That's fair. 66 days. That's a long time.
Mhm.
That's at least 66 tries. Like, have you meditated 66 times? Have you journaled 66 days?
Right, right,
Mm.
consecutively too.
Have you gone on 66
Consistently.
walks? Have you sat in nature 66 times? Like all of
Yeah,
those things.
yeah.
God,
Have
imagine
you
not
have you
having
tried
sat in
breath work?
nature 66 times. I would shoot myself if
Obviously.
that was on my bingo card. Bye.
I bet.
Fuck that.
Yeah,
Fuck
not
that.
worth it.
If I don't go outside 66 times in a month, I'm dying.
66 times in a month, yeah, I mean, it's a couple times a day.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
not that hard, it's not that hard. Yeah,
Not,
and most
not.
people will be like, "Oh, well, I do that, no problem. I get in my car on my way to work, and I exit my car on my way home from work." Right? But I think this is the point. It's like getting really honest and vulnerable about what these habits and choices are intentionally doing in your life, not just the shit that's everyday shit. It's like when I talk about creating micro habits, because micro habits are a really powerful way to get out of these types of energies too. Because
Mhm.
to sit here and be like, oh well, I don't want to be self-sabotaging anymore, so I'm gonna change my life in 66 days. It's such a large gap between the habit that you're in and maybe the person that you want to be, that to jump there feels too large and often is too large for our brain to even accept anyway. So it's like micro things and to get there. My long explanation, longer, micro habits, very specifically, like you walk to the fridge every day to get food. Does that count as walking? Yes or no? Be very intentional about what it is that you're trying to achieve. So if walking is gonna be the habit that you want to incorporate to help combat the perfectionism, to break up the cycle, to break the pattern, whatever it is, I'm gonna walk for 15 minutes in nature
Right.
at this time or on these days or whatever it is.
Right. Or when
Because
this
we can very quickly just say, "Oh, my goal is to," and I work with women every month on this actually, like doing new moon intentions and different things like with those energies. The intentions that they are setting are very broad. So a lot of the conversation is about like, okay, let's get more specific. Let's widen the words to shorten the goal.
Mhm.
So you wanna go for a walk every day. Well, no. Every day is setting yourself up for failure, right? Like, what is it that you actually wanna do? And what is it that you're actually trying to achieve from the walk?
Right.
The why behind it. Remember we talked about the 7 layers of why too? I
Yeah.
did that practice recently with a group of women, and it was really powerful.
Love that one. Like, that to me
Yeah.
is one of my favorite ones to pull out.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
so
if you
let's tell everybody what the 7 layers of why are. So a lot of times when you're setting a goal, here's the reason why I want to achieve this thing. And then you ask yourself, well, let's say the thing I want to achieve is I want a healthier heart. Okay, why do you want a healthier heart? Well, I want a healthier heart because I want to live longer. Well, why do you want to live longer? And on you go for 7 levels deep. And again, intentionally, like sit and really think about it. Don't just
Well, I
throw
think
shit
the
out
reason
because
why
it
it's
can go in
7
circles.
too is, like, you get to that place whether you sit with it or not, because you once you remove those first even 5
Initial.
layers, you're
Yeah,
only left with the truth. You can
yeah,
kind of mosey around excuses for a few layers, but once you have said all of those, what's left is the truth. It's what is actually underneath all of these layers of excuses. So, like, you'll see people, if you use this or have ever had this done, and you think you know the answer, right? And so you come up with something deep, and it's never that. Like, you don't even have
mm,
to really pull anything out. It extracts itself just by the nature of repeating the same thing over and over again. Like, you there's no mask to hide behind anymore.
Yeah. And a lot of times that answer is something around self-worth. I deserve it. I'm worth it. And that's hard for, I believe, people that are struggling with their inner critics, like self-sabotage, like comparison, like perfectionism, because those things that are there as that protective mechanism are keeping them from feeling shame. And
Mhm,
unless we actually allow ourselves to admit that there's some shame underneath there, the shame will continue to be what feeds the behavior. The goal of avoiding shame keeps the shame present
yes.
because it's inherent in all of us. Like, we've all learned shame at some point in our lives, but if we can't face it and call out the truth for what it is, the shame will be what feeds the choices, the decisions, the inner critics, obviously, but even the positive things that we're trying to bring in. There will always be this underlying foundation of shame,
Mhm.
and that's not solid. That's not something to build a life on.
No.
And so when you can get to the I deserve it or I'm worthy of it, that can help unlock and unravel some of the shadow work that's needed to actually trust and own that you do deserve it and that you are worthy. That's
Mhm.
hard for people. And it continues to show up over and over. Like, we're wondering why we are self sabotaging because there's some part of us that's feeling shame and that we don't deserve to live healthy, happy lives. That's why we do that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Fuck that part,
Mhm.
but it's there.
Right.
It's there, whether we want to admit it or not. And so
Mhm.
the sooner we can call it out, so the sooner we can admit it, the sooner we can tie it to some experiences that have shaped us as human beings, the sooner we can do something about that
Hmm.
or
Do you think
choose to do something about it if we want.
yeah, do you actually think it's necessary to tie it to an event for it to go for it to it's not going anywhere. That's not the point.
That
For it
yeah, it doesn't
to
go anywhere, but we increase our capacity to be able to manage it over time. So
hmm,
I think the events are helpful because it gives our brains something to tie the feeling to. Like, when if the shame shows up, you can be, that's because of all these experiences that I've had, these events that have occurred. Is it necessary? No, because it's all just sensations.
right, 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 right. Yeah, I think that's what I'm questioning in the sense of I've seen a lot of people try to or rather the focus is on I don't want to say the wrong thing, but they're putting a lot of focus and energy into things like trying to find this thing in the past of the event that
The
made me
one
do
root
all of things
cause.
to that one fucking thing, right?
Yeah,
And it's giving
not
so much energy
necessary.
and attention to that that there's little to no focus on the present moment and the effects that it has and just realizing like you're saying that it is a sensation and all that you need to recognize is the sensation itself and where it's coming from and you know
Mhm.
potentially that moment is replicating something that happened obviously but do you need to have the full awareness of what that exact starting point is in order for this moment to be recognized as a self-sabotaging event and
Yeah. I
maybe
th I
there's
don't think
ways
it's
to let it
necessary, but I think it's helpful.
go.
And the reason why I think it's helpful is because our brains like to solve problems, we can from our adult lens, look at whatever that event was, even if it was 2 years ago, 1 year ago, a couple months ago, or 30 years ago. We can look at it from a more mature lens and re-pattern what it means to us today. So it's not playing out the same meaning that it had 15 years ago, because that meaning was probably pretty juvenile
Mhm, mhm.
or untrue altogether, or a complete story that was made up in that moment 15 years ago to protect us, to keep us safe, to keep us from feeling shame,
Yeah,
even though it was
this
there
is
anyway.
yeah, yeah, yeah. This is reminding me of, this work that I do, and it's sort of tied in very, very similarly. but it doesn't require or it doesn't ask of like the past necessarily to be the thing that is found. It's more so and I'm using resentment because that's, essentially we're resenting ourselves when we're self-sabotaging. There's something there that's attaching us to this moment. And so
Mhm.
recognizing the resentment for what it is, whatever is the trigger for that moment. That's causing you to self-sabotage, and then seeing your role in it, essentially, like, what it is that how you're playing the part in that creation, and this kind of goes back into, like, what you were saying about being the observer. I think there's a level of observation that is required, but walking a fine line because that can also then create a huge disassociation where, like, we make excuses for ourselves because we've recognized, "Oh, that's just a trigger,"
Mm.
right? So that it starts to become just like, well, I know that about myself. So, like, don't do that rather than actually working with the problem of, I recognize this happens when this external event occurs. How
Occurs,
can
yeah.
I change my reactive behavior? But yeah, just recognizing
Yeah.
yourself in,
In a small way,
yeah,
and let it build, yeah.
yeah, exactly. But it's just
Mhm.
the awareness that you are playing a part in it. And that is sort of the interrupt of the pattern. It's like
Mhm.
once you see that you're in it, then power comes back, choice comes back, and you can then decide to think and move differently. But self-sabotage, when it comes to there's so many layers, right? The inner critics of all of these things, like the comparison, the perfectionism, all of that to me is relational. Like there's a relationship that doesn't feel good, whether it's the relationship with yourself or the relationship with somebody else that is creating this negativity. And so there's something to look at there. What's underneath this attachment that you have with this particular feeling?
Mhm.
Something
Mhm.
isn't being met, some sort of need, whether again it's the need that you're not giving yourself or a need that you haven't gotten from someone outside of yourself. There's lack there. And so when you
Right.
move from lack, you just continue to get lack. You have to find where that lack is. How do you fill that
Right,
up
yeah,
instead?
yeah. And another great reflective question for the attachment specifically, because this is one of the kleshas in yoga. We talk about
Right.
there's 5
Yep.
kleshas, attachment and aversion being one. It's 2 things, but it's one of them.
Right.
Who am I without this thing? So let's just say I'm attached to this relationship, I'm attached to this substance, I'm attached to this thought pattern. Who am I without it?
Mhm.
And letting yourself get really curious and inventive and imaginative about who you are without it and why. They're going to the 7 whys about that too,
Mhm.
because sometimes that will uncover something that you didn't really know about yourself or a part of yourself that you're actually trying to avoid.
Yeah. Mhm.
So it's almost like they're, you know, the good habit outside of the self-sabotage is there's actually something about it that you don't wanna be. And so the self-sabotage actually feels like it's the right thing
Yeah.
because, uh, for whatever I mean, fuck, the human existence is
So complex.
so complex, right?
And
Who am I without?
while I also dote the belief that life is simple, right? The human experience, though, is complex. Life is simple.
Life can be simple. Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if hopelessness is part of this too.
Hmm.
Because or if hopelessness would be considered like an inner critic, or maybe that's like nihilism a little bit. Because again, like we're talking about the state of the world a lot on this podcast right now, because how can we not? I wonder if it's easier to sabotage or to self-sabotage when you look at how chaotic and fucked up the world is and just going, me, what's the point? And feeling that lost faith in either yourself, community, or humanity.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. That's why I feel like choosing the opposite is such a radical thing.
Right,
Choosing
it's like a rebellion. Joy is rebellion, like we were talking
joy as
about.
the rebellion 1000%. It's not only is it so easy, I'm gonna conspiracy theory here. It feels so on purpose for us to sway into that mentality because that's the
Mhm,
point. It's
mhm,
so much easier than to manipulate and control and have us in dis-ease, like not, disease,
mhm.
but literally dis-ease to forget where our
Right.
power is, like
Exactly, because 'cause we're more controllable that way. We're much
right.
more controllable that way.
Yeah, and if we can destroy ourselves, why would you what are you doing, like,
Right.
working on so many other things.
What more do they need to do if
Right,
we're
right,
very
right.
successfully
We're
destroying
we're
ourselves?
very successfully destroying ourselves, they're not even working on that.
Yeah, yeah,
We're doing their job for them.
yeah. Fuck. It's embarrassing a little bit.
It is embarrassing, it should be embarrassing, that's where you should feel shame.
Mhm. And shame, I think a lot of sources will say we don't wanna feel shame,
Ugh,
or we don't
everyone.
wanna shame our children, or we don't wanna shame or this, that, and the other thing. Shame is the deepest, it's the lowest vibrating sensation. And it's like, yeah, good, feel it. I think it's important to feel it. I want my children to understand what shame is so they can call it when they do feel it
It's
because it's
appropriate
such a human
when
experience
it's appropriate, right?
when it's appropriate.
Interesting, it's the lowest vibrational emotion, describe this heavy, dense energy that feels like the weight on the body. Interesting. But
Mhm.
why? Hmm,
Why? Because it's the opposite of love and acceptance, which is the highest vibrating.
mhm, mhm. Okay, I mean, obviously, anything that it has a purpose and also doesn't need to live there,
Mhm.
should come and go like any other emotion.
Yeah. Here's my final thought, people. Don't be afraid of success. I think that has a lot to do with all of this too. When we do operate at our optimal, that feels like we're teetering on something that is temporary. If I get there, then I have to stay there. And that feels like a lot of effort. Or if I do the thing and I get the success, there's so much more to lose. Like, then this fear creeps in about the potential loss instead of the potential gain. Don't be afraid. Easy, right? Just don't be
There's
afraid.
really nothing to be afraid of.
There's nothing to be afraid of. Failure is feedback.
Failure is fake. Don't believe the
Failure
hype.
is faith. Mhm. If this conversation sparked anything, any form of curiosity in your brain,
Yes.
share
Oh,
it, like it,
if it
subscribe.
triggered you in either direction, if you felt
Yeah.
compelled by it, either in agreement or you are fucking mad at whatever the fuck we
Mad.
said, subscribe.
Yeah.
Love us. Hate us.
Love it.
Go in the comments. It doesn't matter. We would love it to be subscribed, but it doesn't have to be.